Hey, welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Riverman.
And I'm James Korte.
Hey, there we go. We got Korte back in the room
Korte,
again.
yes.
I feel like that's like not as exciting as it used to be anymore. I mean, we love having you.
Right.
It's just not like an event.
It's lost some of its luster having him
This
in.
is like your
Yeah.
6th, 7th, 8th time now.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
we made a big deal about like 5 or whatever that magic
Right,
number
right.
is, but yeah,
you're just an unofficial co-host at this
Yes,
point.
yeah.
That just kind of wanders in from time
We
to
didn't
time.
even give him a jacket, for coming on.
We didn't. It's all a
Maybe
sham.
it's all a sham. It's our fault.
No. We tell all of our guests, come back 5 times, you get a jacket. No.
Never.
There's no chance.
Like never.
No one's out. No one else is going to come close anyway. Maybe Jody Costa. We got her
Jody,
coming up again
Sam,
soon. So yeah.
Sam's getting there.
That's a good point.
Mhm,
Sam's
yep.
probably been there almost close to that.
Yep.
So
Jody
all
will
right.
be
As
back.
our resident millennial.
Yeah.
Number 3, Jody.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah. So there you go. Sneak peek.
Solid.
Wow.
Isn't this a wonderful intro, guys? This is what happens when we shake things up and bring someone else in the studio.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, we're here to talk about Web3 today.
Yes.
And we're doing it because Korte kind of threw a challenge out. This was sometime last year. You sent me a random email and said, hey, I think you guys should talk about this whole Web3 thing.
Oh, okay.
And so I kind of was
I was
like,
kind of wondering where this came from.
I kind of was like, okay, sure. I'm like, I don't really know much about it either, but I
don't know
kinda
anything
look
about
at
it.
And I kind of threw it out there to some potential guests, people that were like, we're not sure if what we want to talk about. Like, hey, we got this Web3 thing. You want to talk about that? Not a soul. He piped up and said, yeah, I want to talk about that.
Oh, maybe that should have been a sign, but anyway.
Maybe it
right.
should have. So
Yeah.
finally, go ahead, Korte.
I didn't foresee you throwing it back.
Well,
at
that's
me.
exactly,
I wanted
yeah.
to learn about Web3.
I know your intent was, hey, you guys should talk about this because I want to know more. So finally got around and like, I want to do this because I think it's a cool topic, but I don't know who else should we. Either it's just us talking about it, and I was like, well, Korte, you asked about it, so let's bring you in and have you talk about
Which
it with
might
us too.
set a bad precedent. So anybody listening and watching, go ahead and send in your ideas. John's not going to challenge you by flipping it back on you and saying, well, you tell us about it.
Yeah, I just might drag you in and make you talk about it. Yeah.
You're
I
scared.
don't. You tell me. What do you want to hear about? I don't know.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
All right,
that's
so
our
Web3.
topic. We're going
Yeah.
to talk about Web3. We're going to get into what it is. Talk about what Web 1 and 2 was. If you were unaware, there's been 3 stages.
was,
of the web.
yeah.
We'll
Right.
explain that a little bit.
Still in.
We'll talk about some of the potential benefits, potential challenges. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it something that's even ever really going to happen?
Right.
Talk about what it means for the internet as it currently exists, how it's related to blockchain and crypto, and if that makes you nervous or not, and do some predictions. And as always, we'll figure out how does this tie to the channel in any way whatsoever. Is there any channel connection there?
Oh, channel connection. That ought to be interesting.
Well, I mean, I don't know if there is one. That's what we're here to talk about.
I already got a
so.
landmine that's going to blow this whole thing up. So.
Oh, all right. So you're just going to derail my entire podcast.
No. I'll wait until the end.
All right. All that plus our usual value to the VAR. What's technically with us? And Dean will blow up the podcast.
Boom.
It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, so let's just get into this here. So
Yes.
I can't. There's a couple articles I looked up when I was trying to find out, like, hey,
Yep.
what is Web3?
What is Web3?
What does
Yeah,
it mean?
right.
I'll throw those links into the show notes. One is from the Harvard Business Review, which I thought was the more thorough one, and then Fortune kind of did one, or was it Forbes?
Forbes.
It had kind of a little more of a layman's terms, and to it,
Which I always
as well.
appreciate.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to put this in my language.
Because the Harvard Business Review one did go a little deeper than I was willing to wrap my head around in some ways. But the basic, I'm going to give you the very basic explanation here. So first of all, let's explain Web 1 and 2. So Web 1 is the beginning of the internet. essentially.
Yes.
The old days, the grand days.
GeoCities.
Yeah, ARPANET. Yeah, exactly. Static.
Even before GeoCities, dude. You're like,
that's
this
like
is like
midway in, yeah.
taking the library, what is it, the Dewey Decimal, and putting it into some
so
form.
Like static web pages.
Yes.
If you were around, back in the beginning of the internet, early days of maybe having the internet at home or at school. Let's say
you're going home. Okay.
Even like maybe mid to late 90s or so, and pretty much you just went and visited websites. That's all you did. You just went and checked out a website. You could get some information.
Yep.
Wasn't much else you could really do with it at that time. Maybe you were doing chat IRC stuff or whatever. But
you were an early adopter.
That was about it.
You were doing crazy stuff back then.
I had friends that were into it. So okay,
was
so maybe
Korte.
you were doing that.
Yeah.
Then then let's go to Web 2. Web
Okay.
2 was the user generated content is kind of the idea. It's like a user web. It used to be called Web 2.0 is what most people typically refer to it as.
Commenting.
Yeah,
beginning early
exactly.
Social media. that kind of stuff.
Interactivity, right. And eventually has evolved into basically the web where we are now, which is much more about social interaction. Social media is kind of the dominating form. We all have a say. We can order stuff from the internet. We can leave comments on everything for better or for worse. It's much more interactive. And we ourselves can also go out there and put stuff on the internet with very little to no, barriers to entry to get in there and out there and doing it. That's where we currently are. But the reason why people think a Web 3 could be or should be next is because where we are now is also built on this foundation of corporate control over the internet, essentially. Where
That's the theory.
Most of the internet as it exists based around giant tech corporations that are running the show in the background.
Are you talking like the socials in the world?
Yeah,
Okay,
Google. Socials obviously are a big part
Right.
of it. Google,
Yep.
Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, all of the giant tech companies that
Got
have
it.
kind of laid the foundation of the internet that we're all using today and are also there in the background then, hey, you can get on here. It's not really going to cost you anything to do most of the stuff you want to do here, but we're gathering data about you the whole time. We're shoving ads in your direction. And that's the stuff that people are kind of rebelling against a little bit and thinking, hey, we need a next iteration of the web so that maybe it's bringing control back to us as the people. It's decentralizing it a little bit more, letting us have some control and deciding what we actually want to have access to and what we want to have access to us when we get out there on the internet. Now, in theory, this is this whole decentralized internet idea. Do you guys appreciate that? Does that make sense? Does that sound good? Taking the corporations out of the picture and giving it back to the people, if you will, before we get into some of the nuances of what that could actually mean.
It's a complicated question, man. I mean, it's a lot to get your head wrapped around, if you ask me, because, I always figured the internet was kind of already free, right? I mean, in the sense of freedom, not free as in no expense. Like, I can go, I can browse information, I can shop, I can do the things that life now affords me in an online environment. I wasn't connecting the dots so much on the social side because for me, that's an app. That's not the internet to me. That's like just a separate, and maybe I'm not thinking of it correctly.
Right.
I'm still back in the I guess, whatever web days where, people are just putting up corporate brochures and it's an information transfer is what it primarily is, not an engagement, the picture that you're painting. But when you paint it in terms of the overlords that own, everything, the Googles, the Alphabets and that of the world, okay. Yeah. Okay. So maybe am I a fan of decentralization? 100%. It depends on what you're talking about. But
Right.
Generally, yes. I'm a huge fan of that, and what can manifest itself out of it. I don't know, Korte.
Well, I'll just start by saying when you were talking about what they refer to as the gatekeepers of the internet, the large corporations, it's some crazy percentage of web apps, cloud-based services like the HubSpots of the world that are based on AWS, Amazon Web Services.
They have a massive part of that market.
I mean, I don't want to misquote, but I want to say it's like 60 or 70% of like the big networks. And that's why every now and again, and it's few and far between, that a service like Twitter or Facebook is interrupted. They're all interrupted, right? Like everyone is having an outage because there was something crazy that happened with AWS. So I would say in general, those are very reliable services and they're scalable and affordable and accessible and all of the good things that I want from the internet. But they do have some drawbacks, right? In terms of if you put something on the internet that the powers that be decided they didn't want to be there, they would have the control because they control a large majority of the hosting of internet content to remove it. And that's what decentralization would kind of introduce, is the inability for people to censor. That's one of the big things. I kind of feel like the Web3 movement is largely about more freedom, openness. It's kind of very idealistic in that way. And to Dean's point, I guess in concept, I'm open to the idea, and I even kind of like the idea. But just like anything, I think there are pros and cons, right? Where it's like, well, do we want it to be impossible to take certain things off of the internet?
Yep.
I don't know. I know a lot of people out there talk about like absolutism when it comes to free speech, and not to share my personal feelings about it, but again, in general, I'm open to that, but I don't know. Is it a slippery slope to say, sorry, once something's out there, it's on a million different nodes and you could never possibly, scratch it from the internet. So
Right.
Is that what they're professing Web3 would give you?
We'll get to that a little bit more later, but yeah, that's part of it because and that's kind of the next point
that you
here.
could take down, like if you posted something 10 years ago. Since now you have control over your content, you would have the ability.
Yes,
right. The owner could.
Right.
For sure. What you're saying can't be done today, in the sense that,
Well, no, the opposite actually. In Web3, you couldn't necessarily do what you're talking about.
Oh.
Because, and this is where the next part of it is, where the idea
there's confusion already on that front.
Well, this whole thing being built, the idea is building it on some of the same infrastructure of blockchain and what crypto has been built on, essentially. So basically,
there's a chain of custody.
When you do something on the internet, whatever you've done, whatever you've added to the internet, becomes part of this immutable chain, as they always call it.
That's right.
Of that's accessible all around the world by people on various machines all over the place, so that no one can corrupt it. No one can take something out and say it was never there, because everyone else can say, hey, my copy says it was, and it is still there. Sorry. So in that sense, where you're saying like, hey, there was something in the past that I made a mistake and I want it taken off the internet. Or, and again, we'll get into some of this a little bit more later, some of the stuff that people have done to people, like, hey, just to give you an example, like revenge photography, like when people have taken pictures of someone after they've had a relationship, post them on the internet against their wishes, and they have to work, as it is right now, they have to work incredibly hard to ever get rid of that stuff as it is. But imagine in a sense where you literally cannot, because everyone in the world technically has access to it and would have to collectively decide all at once to get rid of it before you could do that.
Well, and presumably,
that's what you're talking about.
Impossibility.
Yeah, exactly. It's never going to happen, right?
Well, and presumably simple things like website updates. You manage your own website, but it's built on a Web3 platform. Right. You would be able to delete pages, remove pages, because there would be applications built on this Web3 decentralized platform or whatever. But I think the big difference is right now, if I built a website and I publish something, or better yet, if WikiLeaks published something, but their website is non-Web3, meaning it's hosted by AWS through whoever, Squarespace or whatever website they use. Again, those big corporations could decide this is harmful, let's remove it.
Right.
If they had built the same website on a Web3 platform, that couldn't happen. No one would have that ability unless WikiLeaks or whoever the owner is said, we want to get rid of it. And even then, yes. So they'd have the ability to control their web app or website just in the same way you would today, and that if they delete it, it goes away. But again, this is where we get a little bit lost in the sauce is, that information is technically still out there. It's just no longer, on the front end of the site, but it's distributed through all these computers. But yeah, that's the part where...
Maybe I don't understand. Go ahead.
Well, no, in the same way that when we're talking about cryptocurrency and a transaction takes place between you and I, John is helping to mine that transaction through his processing power, but not just John. Well, yes, maybe just John mines it. I don't know. I think it's a collective mining.
Yeah, it could be just one person, but it's usually more. Yeah,
it's usually a group, and it takes a lot of resources and all that kind of stuff. But once it happens, the proof of that transaction exists in a multitude of places.
Right. It's on the ledger.
Yeah. And that's similar to how web hosting would take place. That instead of your files just existing on one space on an Amazon Web Service or through whichever host you use, which are all probably on the backbone of AWS anyway, it would be crowd hosted, so to speak, which these are the things where I start to ask questions around like, how fast is that? Is it less efficient than it being in one place with a whole bunch of infrastructure? What if people, I know this is like a super oversimplification, but we're relying on people and their equipment and their willingness to participate. What if that willingness or ability to participate is somehow taken away with fast power outages or just who knows what could change where all of a sudden is the reliability, an issue, so to speak. And those are the kinds of things that I start to think about. Again, not knowing exactly what we're talking about and how this would look. And I think, I don't want to get too far ahead of what we have planned to discuss, but those are some of my concerns is like, this is such a sophisticated concept that it makes me think that there would be less access, that there's almost like a really technically sophisticated people would love this to be true. But your average person today who has accessibility through some of these bigger corporations to start a business and build a Facebook page that everyone can find, if 15 years from now, maybe Facebook still exists, but it's got 5% of the market share, and there are 300 social networks where you own your own content, but there's all these different feeds, like, does it start to create a worse experience for your average user or even your slightly above average user? Is it like, does this really benefit the super technical users? I consider myself a technical user, and I had to do a bunch of research to even be able to talk about what the heck Web3 is. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, man, I don't know. And, of course, this will continue to evolve, and we'll learn more about. People are going to build services on top of this in theory that would make leveraging Web3 easier, again, presumably, but all TBD, I kind of feel like. So
there's a lot of Wild West here, obviously. And I think that kind of what you were saying lends into the next part here, which is this idea that a big part of, again, another reason beyond the freedom aspect of, hey, I want to be able to do what I do without having some kind of corporate overlord deciding whether I should be allowed to do this or not, is that the other part of it that people rally behind is the idea, hey, we can remove all these data collection things. If you're not having a corporate giant who's controlling this, and as part of their promise to you to say, yeah, you can access this for free. However, I am also going to collect information about you every time you come here, about everything that you're clicking on, everything you're looking at, everything you're doing, everything you buy. I'm gathering all that information. I'm going to sell some of it out to some other folks. This is our covenant between one another that, yes, you can come here and do what you want, but just understand that I now know a lot of stuff about you that you may not realize and understand how much I know about you. And I'm going to go sell that off and give it off to other people
to advertisers, to political entities,
exactly.
anyone who might
we'll also then let advertisers come in and target you directly based on what we have learned and discovered and know about you. We all know that's happening. We all,
of course.
But let's be honest, we've all kind of accepted it and dealt with it, even though we may not like it, and even though there's been a lot of talk about pushing that back as much as possible and making it as untargeted as possible. So one of the ideas behind Web3 is, hey, that would go away. But then the other part of it, though, is that in order to do that, in order to kind of really put yourself in that position where there would be no more data collection or direct advertising, targeted advertising, is you might have to pay in a little bit to have premium access or to be someone that's allowed to vote on what is changed within a system or a server or a particular site or whatever. And a little bit you're pushing in there, or having a little extra functionality. Like maybe you want to have next level functionality where you get to participate in, I don't know, some web updates or deciding what content gets put out there or
new features.
Which all seems a bit of a fallacy, because what I've read is that the power shift goes away from the existing characters to the VCs and folks that are going to be investing in the compute power in order to make this decentralized thing happen to begin with.
That's a quote here I saw.
I mean, it's kind of naive to think that, it's Johnny's computer when he's not using it that's going to help this Web3 with its compute power. No, that's not what's going to happen.
Jack Dorsey, former Twitter CEO, had a great quote on that. And he said, you don't own Web3. The VCs and their LPs do. It will never escape their incentives. It's ultimately a centralized entity with a different label.
That's right.
And I think that's kind of what I'm thinking about here, because I look at this and go, okay, if you're talking about this freedom and getting away from the ads and getting away from the targeting and all that stuff, but then you're also on the backside saying, but there's some opportunities for you to pay in to have some exclusivity. Aren't you just creating an entire set of inequalities?
Yes.
That the whole idea behind the web and the freedom of the web has been that anybody can access it. As long as you have a computer and internet access anywhere in the world, or most places in the world, you have access to the data and the information you want. Now suddenly if you're saying, okay, we're going to decentralize that, and most of you will have access to whatever, but you pay in a little more, you can have a little more access and do a bit more and be even more involved in it.
We're right back to where we started.
How many people are going to get immediately closed, right? Or according to your point, the people that don't have the technical proficiency, don't understand how this stuff works, don't want to get involved with blockchain or Bitcoin or
now it's
crypto.
Even more veiled than it is today.
Exactly. That's where to me the slope starts sliding straight down, and a lot of people are going to be jumping off and saying, nope, this ain't for me. This ain't my internet.
Yeah. I would agree with a lot of what you guys are saying.
Yeah. I mean, that's the scary part about it. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, that's why it kind of seems like a bit of a fallacy here, a bit of like we're hand-wringing over something that... Right. I mean, that's the value that AWS is bringing today, is like, who's going to be able to afford that kind of compute power? I mean, think about the compute power that it takes to run, 60% of the internet today? Yeah. Oh my God. That's like
you said, people are just going to lend up their computers and that's enough? Or why would people be incentivized to do that?
Right.
Oh, so they can get tokens, so they can be part of this group that helps make decisions. And it really just, again, I'm plugged in, and we are plugged in more than the average bear, so to speak. But like when I start to think about my mother or me when I get older and my kids are deep in this, and I'm like, I don't even know how to participate in the internet anymore, because can't I just pay for the service? Or I mean, I'll say this, and I wish I could remove the bias of being a marketing person to say, I appreciate that if I'm going to see ads, they're ads that I might care about because you know a little bit about me. Does it go way too far from a data privacy? Yes, they know way too much about me.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no one would dispute that.
But I'm kind of at peace with that exchange. If these services are very compelling services where lots of people congregate, whether it's a Facebook or a Twitter, or any new platform, I appreciate that lots of people come to few places, and I don't know. I don't know that I necessarily want that to go away. And I'll also add this, that as we were thinking and talking about Web 1.0 and 2.0 and 3, and maybe this is like an obvious thing to say, but I'll say it anyway, there isn't a hard stop of any of these things, meaning content that looks like Web 1 content is still out there. Web 2.0 we're still in the thick of, and I think that Web 3.0 could begin to exist and be useful for some use cases, but the web as we know it today just continues to live on as well.
So you're saying, right. There's no flip that switches.
They can live in parallel together, right? Now it's Web 3. There's no more Twitter.
At
Facebook.
midnight. If you're not Web 3 compatible, now I'm having flashbacks to Y2K.
Yeah, no doubt.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Well, and I think that's the other thing too, is like when I first heard, like when I was starting to read about this, and then when I got to the part where they're like, okay, this is built on like blockchain and some of the same fundamentals as cryptocurrency. Of course, my alarms start going off immediately because the whole crypto thing is still a very much I'm not buying into this.
You're not a crypto bro, are you?
I'm not.
John, it's immutable.
Exactly.
It's unhackable.
Like, it's just one of those things that,
except for the wallets. But other than that,
no matter what
there.
you say about it, no matter how much I hear about it now, I mean, people will try to
sell you on it,
sell me on it. I remain completely unconvinced, and maybe I'm not in the minority. That's just it. I know that I'm not, and a lot of what we've seen over the last couple of years has proven why we shouldn't be buying into that. So that was the part that immediately set me off. Was like, is that the best idea though? Like, and there's another quote I found from Tim O'Reilly, who coined the term Web 2.0 to describe the platform web of the early 2000s, claims that we're in an investment boom reminiscent of the .com era before the bottom fell out. Web 2.0 was not a version number. It was the second coming of the web after the .com bust, he says. I don't think we're going to be able to call Web 3 until after the crypto bust, because only then will we get to see what's stuck around. And I think that kind of resonated with me. Is like, okay, and again, you're to that point. I thought back of the .com thing. And I remember sitting watching those Super Bowls in like the late 90s, early 2000s that were just filled with .com ads, and just everybody was going to make millions of dollars by going. The same kind of talk that we're having right now. It's the same rhetoric that you hear about crypto.
Well, last Super Bowl was all crypto.
Exactly, the same kind of thing.
Who buys a $6 million QR code just floating around the screen?
I had the exact same feeling. Like, this is the same thing. And to his point, what the modern web as we know it now, and this user-generated web, happened after we got rid of all those people out of the way that thought they were going to make millions just throwing up websites for any old thing they wanted to and buying domain names. And now maybe we're in the same place where in order to get to whatever the next iteration of the web actually is going to be, you've got to let what everyone thinks they're going to get rich off of right now blow up in their faces, and then we'll sort out the pieces and figure out what was and wasn't working.
Yeah.
I'll build on something you said there around the crypto piece, which is I feel like early case for crypto was accessibility to people who don't have reliable federal banking or whatever. And all
which is not a bad idea at all.
It's not. I was I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And it's similar. Web3 it's about opening up and building the web we deserve and all of these things. But I just can't get past the idea that the barrier to entry from a technological standpoint of both of those things, crypto in general, and then Web3 being kind of built on a similar technology, is it's accessible to wizards on computers, right? Which most people are not. So it's like, it does give you abilities if you have abilities, if you have an internet connection and high-speed laptops and, a big brain and all this good stuff.
If you're Mr. Robot,
Well, we've talked about it. It's just further discrepancy between the haves and the have-nots. It's just more intellectual whatever compute power or right. It's like it doesn't. It's narrowing it down even more.
Whereas your average person is just, I want to order a shirt and I want to be able to talk to my mother-in-law on the other side of the country.
Exactly.
That's what I need the internet.
Share photos with my friends. Can I just do that?
Yeah, exactly. I don't care
without you being too probing.
I don't care about my ledger code and all this other jazz that you guys are talking about.
And some of the problems they want to solve for are smart problems, but
They are smart problems.
It's like, is it the throwing out the baby with the bathwater? Like, do we have to completely blow up the web to figure out data privacy or things like that? I mean, maybe. I don't know.
Or content control, because that was the other angle, right?
Exactly. And that brings up a point that I think one of these articles made, which was the idea of like, okay, so when you go back to this idea of the data collection and or actually go back to the idea of not being able to erase anything, like whatever you do in this blockchain version of the web is there and done. Well, that flies in the face of stuff like GDPR that have come out, and and Canada's adopted things like that. At some point, the U.S. will probably get to that point as well, and a lot of other countries of having some protections in place for people to be able to erase their data or determine what data can and can't be collected about them. Well, that flies in the face of that if you have this Web3 that's basically saying like anything you do, whether you wanted to do it or not, or whether you wanted to be out there, is going to be out there forever, and you don't have a choice in the matter anymore. So like the kind of the point they were coming to in the article was that maybe the hybrid model of some sort might be where we would finally have to rest, where there's portions of the internet that we do build on this particular model, and we'd have to decide what those are and why they're there and why you need access to those. But then there'd still be a significant chunk of it that's still what we kind of know today and is
but
available
who's
for
the we
everybody.
deciding that? The marketplace?
Great question. Yeah,
Or,
exactly. That's still again where you start getting to that point of like,
it's the people who have the money.
Who's going to
the
make that
effect.
partition, and who's going to be allowed to get over top of it?
Right.
So and why?
Yeah, exactly.
What do they have to pay to get there?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
who knows?
Came across two terms in some of my research. I'm curious to know, A, if you guys came across these terms, and B, if you reacted to them similarly to me.
Okay.
And they were trustless, a trustless environment,
Yeah.
and permissionless environment.
Yeah.
I was like, man, those don't seem like good things.
No.
Right?
And
Right?
yet they're supposed to be
Yeah.
like the foundational ideas.
Yeah. And so I had to Google each one, like, what the heck does
Wait,
it mean?
trustless, and what was the other one?
Permissionless.
Permissionless. Okay.
So trustless basically means that where you and I would have to rely on a payment processor to process a payment, whatever. I send you something for something you did, or I buy something via PayPal. PayPal
Right.
is the third party that we're trusting. Whereas in a trustless environment, we would be relying on other people, but non-authorities, to mine our transaction or what have you. So I get it, but I'm like, God, I don't know. Again, maybe I'm sure this is like a super old school way of thinking about it, but I like putting trust in companies who have built a track record of trust versus this decentralized network. That
Plus, you've got all the laws
back.
backing that, and so you start getting into areas what would laws apply to a trustless type of an entity? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we can go to the payment company, and if they whatever that transaction didn't work out, we can go to court and say, hey, and
or if someone stole my credit card and ran up $5 grand.
We've got a whole infrastructure around this, as opposed to like this. Hey, somebody over there mined that this transaction happened, but
somebody
really
swindled me because they're smarter than me, and now I'm just out a bunch of money. Damn it!
So trustless and what again?
And then permissionless.
Meaning you don't need permission to
create.
Right.
Yeah.
Back to your point early on of like, you can't have the AWS or the Twitter or whoever saying, sorry, that's not allowed here.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And there's something to that. I mean, again, I'm curious to know what you guys think. I guess it's just really asking you how you feel about like absolute free speech or censorship, which that's a big thing too, is if the corporations don't own the web, we can put whatever we want out there.
Right.
And it's
because that's never
to us.
backfired.
Well, yeah, but that's not really the case. I mean, we have laws against. I mean, free speech isn't like you can't go out and say certain things and do certain things, even under
Web3,
our Constitution.
Maybe you could, and there wouldn't be any recourse.
I would think that it would live under our Constitution.
That's the difference, though, because technically with the Constitution, all they're technically saying is the government can't come after you for what you say and do. You can say and do whatever you want, but the other part of it that people don't want to acknowledge is there can be consequences for it. And it's not necessarily the government's doing the consequences. Like that what they're saying is like, hey, they can't come and arrest you and throw you in federal jail because you said something they didn't like. But your job can fire you. This company can refuse to do work with you. These people can refuse to give you money.
Someone might kick you in the shins on the street.
Yeah, exactly. People might just be unhappy with you, and your life might be miserable because you said something stupid.
Right.
There's no protections from that, and I think that's the thing. Is I think sometimes when people talk about that, they have this idea of like, I want to have the freedom to do whatever I want with zero consequences. But I think that's where you get into like this whole debacle with Twitter is kind of set up where, Elon wanted to come in and say, hey, I want to open up Twitter for everybody to get back on. It should be free for everyone to say what they want. And here's the thing. I'm not even saying that he's entirely wrong, that you shouldn't, that it's not, that you might not want to feel that way and feel that people can do that. There's things I don't want to see there necessarily, sure, but and I have the ability to not see it if I don't want to. But the other part of the equation that I think that either he just didn't care about or didn't think too hard about, and that people pointed out is, all right, but the whole point of social media is it's mostly a content moderation platform, because the only way you survive and you get to run that business is if you're moderating content so that you can get advertisers and subscribers that are willing to actually use your platform.
Right.
And
I think he's blown that up, though. Have you not read any of the Twitter files that have come out? So it's curating content to a certain bias.
Well, I'm not even talking about that. I'm not talking about the bias.
Well, yeah,
part.
but I don't know how you. Anyway,
I'm talking about like,
it.
let's say that if you decide, hey, we just let anybody say whatever they want. Apple, Coca-Cola, Nike, the NFL all says that's fine, but we're not going to give you millions of dollars in our ads.
That's right.
On your platform. How do you get how does your platform function at that point? When the only people that we advertise are people that just don't have a lot of clout and a lot of money. And then you also lose millions and millions of subscribers because they don't want to be part of it anymore. Or you're expecting the subscribers to, pick up the slack by saying, hey, give us $8 a month in order to use our service now. That's never going to add up to, I don't care how many users you've got.
There's one other answer. Let the world's most rich person own the company.
Right.
You can just bankroll the whole thing.
Bankroll the whole thing.
Well, that's
it's curious that you're worried about the economics of it, because there was a long time when Twitter existed and didn't make a profit, didn't make any money.
You're right. Yeah, exactly.
And that's how it was built. So don't worry about that. That's Elon's issue, not my issue.
I guess so. I guess so. But I'm just saying.
The foundation of it.
I see your point as well, John. But
look, I'm done watching the evening news because it's all run by the pharmaceuticals. That's all you see are pharmaceutical ads. You can't tell me that they don't have an influence on what's going on there. So, that's a part of the world that we live in today. So I don't know. Twitter is an interesting example, but getting back to the core thing, should we have an environment where people can say whatever they want to say? Yeah, one way to look at it is like the schoolyard. I keep going back to that. If you were to be in the schoolyard and say something idiotic, you might get beat up over it, or you're going to be alienated, or maybe you get a certain kind of friends, and then that's your clique right? That's humanity. That's how we live. That's society. I don't know. I don't fear.
But there's a big difference in the internet, though. No one can punch you in the face on the internet.
No, that's fair. That's
metaphorically,
fair.
you can get.
You can hide behind a persona.
This is exactly you create an avatar. You hide behind a persona. No one knows exactly who you potentially
does are. Does Web3 solve that? I don't know that it does.
That's just it. I don't know that it does either.
I was going to ask the same question. I didn't come across anything about that, but I think that is just like a bigger question for the internet. And I forget who it was. I recently heard someone make a case, and I can't remember any of their good points, so I almost shouldn't bring this up, where they were making a case for the positives of anonymity on the internet. And I don't remember what the heck it was.
Oh, wow. Yeah, see. Yeah,
I'm a big fan of knowing who people really are.
I think you
to be able
right?
to stand behind what you have to say, like you said, Dean. Because you're right. People, the free exchange of ideas, you're going to attract your tribe, for better or for worse, depending on how you align and the things you say. They can be really out there. It's going to be a handful of people that might be with you. But there's going to be the majority of people who are like, they need to go play by themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Or that, no,
those are not our people.
And just by the nature of that, that goes away.
But I mean, again, if we're relying on, and I guess that's still where I get hung up a little bit, is the actual technical aspect of all of this. Because initially, even still, I think, anyhow, I never really got involved. But when it comes to mining Bitcoin, I knew people that were going out, individuals that were going out and buying up graphics cards and building these computers, and they had like a mining farm in their basement or in their house somewhere.
Oh, really? Okay.
They were really legitimately using their power, and you really needed some significant power to like even make a dent in this thing and make any kind of money.
Which we didn't even touch on the environmental impacts here. But that's a whole other thing.
Well, we should, because I have a couple notes about that as well, but. So that's kind of where my head was, like Johnny's computer, like you said. I'm like, am I really going to rely on our enterprise 5,000-page website
exactly
on a whole farm of Johnny's computers out there? Like, I don't love that, man. That's the value that these big corporations bring, and all their data stealing, whatever you feel negatively about them. And I don't think any of that, or I think definitely there's some of that critique or criticism of the Googles of the world and Amazons and Facebooks that are very legitimate, right? But they also provide a really fantastic service in a lot of ways. So I don't know. I guess
I don't know. I don't know that this solves it as opposed to maybe some other solution where we turn it more of a utility and there's openness about how the mechanisms and the infrastructure and how it's working and stuff like that, so that people can have a say on it. I don't know. I mean, it's really curious, but I don't know that I'm sold on Web3's ability to tackle some of those issues that have been brought up to the forefront. again, I keep going back to the fact that, somebody's got to own the compute at the end of the road. So we can think that we're thwarting a lot of this stuff, but are we really? I don't know.
Right.
If they're owning the compute, they can just.
There's got to be money coming from somewhere. Like this stuff doesn't just spring up overnight for free.
No,
like it's
right.
I'll regret saying
you can't plant an internet seed somewhere.
On some level, I can appreciate and trust companies whose desires are clear. Meaning Amazon just wants to make boatloads of money.
Right.
Same with Facebook. They want to sell my data to people who advertise, but I know what I'm getting in exchange. And I'm sure there's solid arguments out there to say, well, you don't know everything that they're taking your physical location.
Yeah, right.
True.
And that's where it gets really sketchy, where I think that these conversations need to happen outside of Congress with very old people who don't know what's happening. But in those, they just need the right people in those rooms to have the conversations. But it's very interesting.
Well, the manipulation of data is curious, right? I mean, how do we get away from that? I don't know. I mean, that is that's a part of this whole thing that they're trying to. I mean, I see the nirvana of Web3, and that through that you have through decentralization, it just disposes all of that overt control, that these entities can have, whether they utilize it or not. I don't know, but at the end of the road, I don't know. Do we really get away from it? So, yeah.
Well, I mean, we've kind of touched a little bit of this on our predictions of what may not happen next year, and I think what this comes down to is I think some of this can and probably will somewhat exist in some form. I think that that comment from who was it, the guy who founded the Web 2 coin Web 2 thing. I think Riley. I think his point was valid that we probably aren't going to know how this all shakes out until something kind of gets imploded and we pick up the pieces afterwards. So I think once that shakes out, maybe we get a better idea of what this looks like on the back end. And I could see something where maybe like this isn't the internet, period, but this is like, hey, certain portions of the internet make sense to run through this kind of a platform. Certain industries, maybe we don't even know what all of those are right now. Financial obviously is one that we've can see a clear idea of how that's supposed to work and where that makes sense. We can also see some clear pitfalls out of that, and have seen those obviously too, for sure, especially where money gets involved. So I have a feeling that's the kind of thing where you're going to see something like this getting built for specific industries, for certain situations where it makes sense to have these kind of broad, let's let people in here and do what they need to do.
Let's say like Wikipedia as an example.
Yeah, there you go.
Like that.
Yeah.
For the public good, and I know there's, similar to the Twitter files, there's some info out there about but whatever. Things that serve no matter if there's a little bit of bias, there's a lot of value there, right?
Right. Exactly.
For everyone and all that good stuff. I could see something like that being built on Web3.
Right.
I'm right where you are, John, which is, I think there use cases are going to emerge where it has clear benefit.
Right.
But is it going to be the entire web? Who knows?
Well,
I don't think most people in general care. I just think in general, most people, it's the same reason that we can have this conversation about data privacy and mining and targeted ads. Most people, again, are just like, I just want to go buy my shirt and talk to grandma.
Well, and
I don't care what they're collecting about. Sure, okay, they can know that I'm a size medium and I like blue and that I talk to grandma about, the weather or something. That's fine. I don't care. Right. Most people just don't care what's coming out of that.
But let's dive into some reasons why it won't work, why Web3 won't work. And you're on one of them, right? So programming. Have you even tried? I wouldn't even know how to program something in Web3. What is it taking?
No, I really think it is. I think it is. It's about how data is hosted.
Okay.
I think that's the big thing when it comes to the web
it's not
itself.
like we're deviating away from HTML and stuff like that. Okay, got it.
All the, obviously web technologies will change, but the same stuff
just
hosted differently.
But help me understand this, because in my readings I was saying, well, one of the issues that it has is inability to do good design. Poor UX, poor UI. So to me, that was like, then there's fundamentally something I don't understand about how you program in Web3. So, but I don't know. I mean, it just refers to the fact that, again, from a developer's standpoint, it's more difficult to program whatever it is, whether it's the site, the page, or whatnot. So, I don't know.
Well, I'm sure some of the tools that you have to lean on that are, again, tools that are owned by these giant corporations, that if you're no longer using them, you got to build your own tools or find something else to do. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
I had come across something. I don't know what the UI piece would have been, but from a user experience, could include speed. I came across some things that basically said that because you are distributing where the data is hosted, pulling that data when someone makes a request on a server might not be as fast as it is today, which is extremely fast and reliable. And
I don't want to go. I don't want to go back to dial-up.
I don't want to go back.
No, thank you.
Well, I did read that scalability is an issue, right? And so maybe that is, that gets to the whole compute power of what it's taking to run the crypto world today. Is Norway. Right. I mean, basically, it's the whole power to run Norway is, and so now you take that on a scale to run the internet. Oh my God! It's like, are we duplicating the entire power used by the U.S. just to run this? And does that make a lot of sense?
And once again, also, you're going to have to have
scalability, right?
Somebody's going to have. There's going to have to be some people that have more infrastructure and more server capability than others to make this all happen. Like, I don't see how. Even if you just have every single person's single unit in the world, it's probably not enough. You're going to have a few places where there are just thousands of servers, right?
Mini data centers.
Yeah, exactly. So then who owns those? Like, someone has to own those. And if they own those, doesn't that give them some sort of control?
Arguably, yes. But maybe the idea is just, instead of it being 4 or 5 giant ones, it's 45,000 mini ones all throughout the country. And a note that I made that stood out was one of the kind of, I don't know if it's a stated goal of Web3 or not, is killing data centers. Exactly what we're talking about. And the idea, and again, I don't know that this is true or not, they say that the closer the data is to you, meaning I'm loading my web files from Dean's machine, just in theory, versus from a data center in Colorado, the more energy efficient it is, the more sustainable it is. What was the word? The closer the data is to you, the better it is for the environment. I don't know if there's proof of that, but that's what I mean,
I guess it sort of makes sense.
So you almost be trading off that user experience and the speed for sustainability and environmental friendliness. Most people aren't going to care. Not saying that I don't care. Like, gosh, do I want to make that try? I would need it quantified a little bit better. Like, are we saving the planet here, or is it like
put in more solar panels? I need my speed.
So, let's be honest. There's a million and one things we're all supposed to be doing a little bit better to make the world a better place that a lot of people won't do because it's slightly inconvenient.
And so here's the killer. Here's the bomb. And because I love this one, no benefit for mainstream business. And I think that's where you were going. Like, why would any business do? What is the compelling reason for a business to shift what they're doing today into Web3? It's not there.
Especially given how much businesses rely on the power of data and of what they can collect. And I'm not even talking about like the potentially malignant, data collection and shady way it's shifted about or whatever, but just
Netflix,
just basic business, Just basic business people have that, where they rely on, like, hey, I need to know who's clicking on what on my website. I need to know what people are viewing. I need to have at least a little bit of demographic information about people that are checking out my stuff so that I know who I can properly advertise to. Like, if the bulk of my business is young women in their late 20s, I need to know that's who I need to be out targeting at places where young women in their late 20s are. If I no longer have that information, have no way of collecting that information, how does like a new business go out and market in any way? It's just going to be just a shot in the dark and just hoping you figure it out,
or they'll come to you, right? And it's like, well, you'd have to do very broad marketing to everyone.
Exactly.
We'd be going way
Again,
back.
that's where like innovation could get stifled, and small business could be like, you don't have a shot.
They're not going to be able to keep up.
You don't have the money and the infrastructure to go out there and shoot your shot a million different places until you figure out what's going on.
Maybe something would be innovated to help out that. But
maybe I don't know.
You're rebuilding all this stuff, right?
I would love to poll the general public on their preferences around digital advertising. Meaning, would they, assuming, again, you have a magic wand and you can not give away a bunch of information you don't want to give away about your political leanings, your financial standing, or whatever, but people know things like you like soccer, this, that, and you're a man or a woman or whatever the case, so that they can send you somewhat, if not very relevant advertising versus just seeing random ads, like you open the newspaper or a magazine or something. I highly prefer seeing things that are relevant to me. I just wonder if I'm in the minority there, or if it's just because of truly.
No,
I mean, what do you guys think?
I think that's a little bit of a veiled issue that people bring up, because the internet doesn't matter. I mean, before the internet, you could get high-end catalogs. You could get or they would send it if they thought you were in a certain income bracket. So I mean, disseminating and categorizing people and serving them ads and stuff like that.
It existed long before the internet.
It's just gotten more sophisticated.
It's just gotten a lot more sophisticated. I think
you just had to maybe you had to look at somebody first before you actually determine what you wanted to try to sell.
The issue, I think, is veiled for me, because what I think what people really mean is they don't like the influence that can bring. Like when you have and when you see what's happening in the world, that Amazon can influence your purchases in a way that benefits them, rather than just
pushing you to their products.
Exactly.
Instead, yeah.
I mean, like do a Google search an Amazon search on whatever, and you sometimes, just like in Google, you have to scroll, several pages in order to get off the ones that they think are relevant for you. And, and I'm not saying that 90% of the time they're dead on, but 10% of the time I'm like, no, that's not, no, I need cheaper, whatever type of a thing. So if you know that influence is going on in the background, I think that's the negativity that people react to. Oh, it's just
no, very well could be.
And maybe that's kind of what it comes down to also, is that it's more about like teaching people to have a little bit more internet savvy, a little bit more discerning understanding of what's going on when you get on the internet. Not just, again, I think most of us are savvy enough to understand that, hey, when I go on the internet, it doesn't have my best intentions in mind. It's all about making someone else some money. Yeah. And most of us react according to your point. Like when you Google something, like, I don't know about you, even if the choice, what I want is the first thing, if it's the ad version, I will skip it to go find the regular version.
Yeah, for
sure. Because I just don't want to give that ad click for some reason. And that's probably just something dumb in my head. Most people go, that's what I wanted, click.
Right.
John, I'll tell you what it is. I do the exact same thing. It's because as an advertiser, I'm like, I'm not going to cost them $4 if I can just click the organic link.
Right.
I'm being kind.
Yes, I'm being kind
ad,
too.
I'm like, no, I'm not going to click on the Google ad.
But again, it's more of the influence. The issue is that is Google suppressing certain things on certain searches, right? I think it seems like maybe the answer has been yes to that. So that's the influence that I think that people are worried about that these big companies now have.
There was a recent drop of some kind, and this is another Korte story where I have some point I want to make, but I don't know any of the details. There's some search engine out there that their algorithmic logic came out, and a bunch of SEO people on LinkedIn are discussing it and going into depth. 14,000 ranking factors that are just exposed out there. And it kind of looks like code, but it's understandable in terms of what they're looking at. And it's really cool. So to your point, just to know that, in some search engine you've never heard of that isn't Google has this really super multiple layered complex algorithm. And you're like, what is behind these things? So you know what I mean? Like how devious are some of these things in terms of what they're considering and what they're not? And I don't know. I find it extremely interesting. Real quick, to go back to a point you made a minute ago, Dean, which was, what does this mean for business? Is it solving any problems for them? When I was reading through things and educating myself, that was what the headline I made was, what problems does it solve and for whom? And really, I do think that that's one of my main takeaways about this entire concept and idea is that it is idealistic for kind of the internet children, for lack of a better way to put it. The internet kiddies, not make them sound like they're kids or whatever, but the people who are heavily invested and spend a lot of their life on the internet. And I would consider myself part of that in a lot of ways, although I was an old millennial where I have 1 foot in the normal world and 1 foot in the internet world, like the last of that generation, you know what I mean? But that's, as I went down the line, ownership and monetization of content is a big one for the creators. And it's funny, as someone who grew up into art and into creation of physical things, and it's funny how that term has changed over time, where now like you make text only posts on Twitter, but you've got 1.5 million followers and you're a creator. But I do think it's legitimate to say that these people are creating and adding value to these networks that they really have no stake in.
That's fair.
Like with YouTube, you can make some money. Spotify, you can make little tiny bits of money. But like Twitter right now, that was one of the things that Elon said when he first came in, where I'm like, ooh, that could change the game for them. If a Twitter creator could, quite honestly, this sounds silly, it never occurred to me that YouTube was one of the only channels, and I guess now TikTok, and I'm sure that I'm missing some others, but
Twitch is another big one, I think, these
Twitch.
days.
Where you can make money from your content. Whereas all these other ones, people invested time and years and pour everything that they know into these things they can build a personal brand that they have to then leverage and monetize on their own. So anyway, ownership and monetization of content benefits content creators, not big businesses, individuals, also businesses, I guess. But go ahead.
No, I think that's kind of where the NFT thing, and to your point, maybe it's a hybrid. Maybe this is one of the use cases. If I create something, how do I create the intellectual property and retain that around it? It's a good point. It's an excellent point.
On this podcast before, we talked about the idea of decentralized social. And I remember trying to do my best to explain it, and you were going, I'm going to try again, because now that we've kind of laid out what a decentralized web hosting infrastructure could look like.
Yeah.
By the way, fun term, IPFS, Interplanetary File System. Do you guys come across this?
No.
This was
I
like
didn't see that
one eye open, falling asleep in bed reading last night. This is what they're referring to, what would kind of explain how people would be, sharing or whatever, hosting your content in a bunch of nodes. They call it the IPFS.
Yep.
Totally lost my train of thought. What the heck was social networks. So instead of Twitter being a social network, and we all have accounts on Twitter, we would all have independent feeds.
Got it.
So at James Korte would be my feed that I own on my own node, and then I could start my own social network that people could opt into, or I could kind of attach my feed to different ones, I guess. And which is interesting.
Like an aggregator of some sort, a feed aggregator.
Yeah, but it feels to me like what it could create, and I think I kind of feel this way about Web3 in general, is a very disparate internet where there's just a million options, and options are generally good, right? But sometimes it's like, God, there aren't really that many communities because there's so many communities and they're all tiny. And maybe that is the internet that some people really want. I don't want to, this is someone else talking. I don't want to be on Facebook.
Right.
My mom is there. I want to be in my own little tribe, but they don't know anything about it. And I want all of these tribes for all of my different interests. That's kind of how I visualize how this could play out versus you're either on TikTok or Twitter or YouTube. You know what I mean? There's like a handful of options right now.
Right. I got it. Gotcha. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And then, so going down the list, what problems is it solving for who? So we talked about content, monetization. Is that a business thing? Yes, but I'd say it leans more toward, I feel like a lot of the benefits lean more toward the individual than they do the business or the organization.
Right.
So anti-monopoly, again, doesn't benefit businesses in the terms of the biggest of businesses.
Right.
But so I guess maybe where I'm kind of teasing the value to the VAR a little bit, if we did tear down some of these AWSs of the world, or at least introduce more competition, does that mean that there are more opportunities for smaller businesses to become these kind of small hubs of hosting and things like that? Data security and privacy, again, businesses benefit from having our data. We would benefit. So I won't go down the entire list, but everything I could come away from is this is about giving the individual the power back kind of thing. And we already kind of outlined why some of that is not fully true or what have you, that someone would have to come and take that power that's being left over by these big corporations. But it's an interesting world we're living in, guys.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Completely agree. All right, we've solved Web3. We all understand it now, right?
Did we solve it? I don't know.
Hopefully people understand it a bit better.
I think we got at least a little more of a foundational understanding.
In 2022, I think 70% of people said they didn't know what the heck it was.
Yeah.
And I would have been amongst those people in 2022. Which is why I'm like, you guys should talk about Web3.
Yeah, there you
Well,
go.
all right. Whoa. What about Web 5?
There you go.
Did you guys come across that at all?
No. What happened to 4? We just skipping 4?
No. We're skipping Jack Dorsey. Remember him?
Is this like iPhone? We skipped from, what was it, 10 to 12 or
we're
something
skipping.
like that?
We're skipping Web 3.
Or no, we skipped over 13.
Jack Dorsey is who announced his intention to build Web 5 on top of the Bitcoin blockchain. So anyway, he's already leapfrogged Web 3 in bringing in more of a hybrid approach of what you're saying. Whereas you're using the main benefactor of being able to protect your own data, your own world, yet still in this whatever.
I mean, I think, ultimately the web is going to change. It's not going to stay the same. It hasn't been to stay the same. I mean, granted, I think sometimes we have to pause and remember the fact that, while it's consumed, roughly about half of our lives that we've been on the web and in the internet and have an understanding of it, that's a very fractional part of human history that this has existed.
It's still very much an experiment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
For us to even have a grasp of how to manage or what to do with it. So, I mean, it's going to change. We know, the whole, social network sphere, that's going to be a completely different thing, I think, within just the next decade. You're going to see some of these social giants completely collapse, fold in on one another. Things are going to change. The idea of data privacy is going to grow stronger and change the way the internet and the way the game is played. Whatever this Web3 is probably is not going to be the answer. It's probably going to be something completely different that we didn't expect. But at least people are talking about it and thinking about what happens next. But maybe this is a conversation we come back and revisit in 7-8 years.
Yes,
Listen to this pod again and oh man, we were so wrong about that.
Almost for sure that will.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, hey, before we wrap things up here, as always, thank you so much to the sponsors of the TEConnect podcast, our TEConnect program. We appreciate your support. support so that we can sit here and ramble about future concepts that no one quite does seem to understand. Thanks for helping out with that. We appreciate it.
We just clarified it.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Hopefully somebody out there got something useful out of it. And if you did, tell us about it. That would help us out a lot.
It would help us out.
Give us your thoughts. Share your insights. If you have your own thoughts on it, if you're thinking like Web3 is brilliant, or like no, this is wrong, or here's the internet I've created. Please join me at www.253- whatever. If you got that stuff, feel free to share it with us. You can we always want to hear from you about your topics and your ideas for the show.
Yes.
Discussion points, things you want us to get into. If there are other nebulous concepts like Web3 that you think we should be spending some time talking about.
Be like Korte.
Yeah.
Make the suggestion.
Exactly.
We won't necessarily bring you on.
Maybe you want to hear a little more about it and you don't quite understand it, or maybe you just want to laugh at us trying to understand it.
There you go. That's the better.
Send those in. There's always a link in the show notes where you can drop those topics to us. Just for sending it in, we will send you a TEConnect podcast t-shirt.
Boom.
That's all you got to do. You send in your idea.
Soft,
you
comfortable.
get a t-shirt. It's as simple as that. There's not many easier transactions than that. It doesn't cost you anything but a few seconds of your time to make some letters, string them together into a coherent sentence.
Spring is coming. Everybody needs a t-shirt.
Yeah,
right?
there you go.
You need a new t-shirt
exactly.
for spring.
So do that. We'll send you a t-shirt. If we use you on the show, we'll check in with you. We'll shout you out. Okay, I may not drag you on the show unless you really want to be, but mostly we'll just, we'll let everyone know that this idea came from you. And as always, of course, if you want to stay in touch with us, share your ideas with us, let us know what you thought about any particular episode. You can always find us by email at TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com or find us on Twitter at TEConnectPod. All right, let's wrap things up here. So value to the VAR is a little harder to do than usual here because, there's no tangible direct link to our VAR community just yet here. But, let's maybe do a little brainstorming. Does this mean anything to our channel yet? If this did come to pass or some new iteration of the web or some decentralized version, does that mean anything to our VARs, to our channel? Is that going to change anything about our business at all?
I've got some stretch points.
Okay.
I'll do my best to try to tie them in here a little bit. So we referred to both of these things, which is, I guess I'll keep in mind that our customer base, the VARs, the MSPs, the ISVs, there's a lot of diversity there in those types of businesses.
Right.
Meaning we think about them in our minds and we think, in certain ways. We definitely have some customers that are marketing agencies that get asked to come and do different things for their clients, and all of a sudden they're dealing in corporate communications and digital signage and things like that because they were asked to. Definitely, there's people involved on the data center side and networking side of things. So we referenced that if a Web3 were to blossom and data centers became smaller and more localized or whatever, perhaps that's a managed service that people would have to provide. So it's something worth keeping an eye on. If everyone isn't relying on AWS anymore, then maybe that creates an opportunity. Then the second one is, and this is less of an opportunity and more of a start thinking about this, meaning if data privacy continues to become a bigger and a bigger issue, like it has for our European team for years, one of the things you do need to think about is more broadline marketing and brand building, and how you do that in a way where you can't be hyper-targeted with only the people you think that matter. You have to put your bat signal out there so that people know at the basic level what your company is and what you do so that they can find you, right? Because if we start really focusing on privacy, then we're going to rely on people finding us, which means we still have to advertise. We're just going to have to do it in a more TV sort of method where it's, I may have made this once before, the same point on this podcast before as well, which is that there is benefit in, and I'll use the same example I used before, there's benefit in marketing a BMW to people who will never buy one because the value that it holds in their minds is important for the people who can, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good point.
For sure.
Having a BMW isn't as cool to someone who can afford it if the people who can't afford it don't go, ooh, look at that. Right? So similarly, everyone needs to know about your product, and then the people who actually need it can come and find it, or who want it, I suppose. It's my best attempt.
Yeah, really. No, that's actually... You brought a lot of context in there because for me, it's like, no, this is not near term at all. There is no worry from a channel perspective. Right. It doesn't really mean anything to us. Although, blockchain is obviously got to run, a couple of years ago in the channel. And there are certainly certain manifestations of it in healthcare and stuff like that where it's meaningful to bring that technology and embrace it. But I wouldn't worry too much about Web3 if I owned my own company.
Yeah, I kind of like.
I don't know that it's going to have a
kind of to
dramatic
Cordy's
impact.
point. I thought about it from the marketer's perspective, and I was like, man, this is something that could be hard for marketers. If,
For
if
sure.
you're trying to advertise.
Absolutely.
But then the other part of it, I thought as well. I feel like something that's decentralized, where you're not relying on the data collection, you're not relying on the targeting. You got to get that much better at content. You got to be that much smarter about what you're saying and putting out there, and you got to have some of the best stuff in the biz in order to get people to want to follow you and pay attention and attract their interest.
Creating word of mouth through in-person
Exactly.
events and experiential stuff. And
Yeah, like I think you have to be at the top of your game. You can't just go out there and just spray a bunch of ads and hope you get some people. There'll be some, but again, that also still comes back to a haves and have-nots kind of thing.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
do you have the capability to do that in a world where you have no other choice but to do that? So yeah, for
Interesting
now, I'd say
conundrum.
for now, there's probably nothing too much that our VARs need to be super concerned about this. This is
It's
just more of
interesting.
a understanding.
Yep.
Understanding what this is and
Yeah.
what it could mean in the future. But
Here's the precursor.
Probably,
That's right.
probably one of those things that's not going to have a huge impact for quite some time on us. All right, let's wrap things up as always with what's TEConnecting with you. This is our
yes.
fun part of the show. We get to talk about something in the world of science, tech, innovation that has got our attention, caught our eye. Cordy, I'll let you start. What's TEConnecting with you right now?
so I've got two, and I've got one that I'm sure has come up already. Has anyone mentioned ChatGPT?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm glad I had to.
And as a sneak preview, that's part of what Jody's going to come on and talk to us about when she
very cool.
joins us in a few weeks. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Talking about whole AI marketing stuff.
Got it. Yeah.
I wanted to get her thoughts on that.
Very
Yeah.
nice.
And I'll just say this, two things quickly, and then I'll actually talk about my one. ChatGPT is never available whenever I try to go there and ask a question. It's always down. And I said this to you the other day, Dean. It's like, I know people are building tools on top of it, and there's some really cool. I actually downloaded a little carousel from LinkedIn the other day that someone had posted about like
You were showing it. Yeah.
the 20 coolest tools. And I mean, some of them are like, you can get up and give a presentation to like a virtual audience and just really, really cool stuff. But what I'm going to talk about is not as cool. It's just it's got my attention, which is a tool called Notion. I don't think it's really new. I believe it's been around for a few years. And what it's being used as primarily is a project management tool. But people are using it on an individual level as well. Students in university are using it for like tracking their assignments and their projects they're working on and their class schedules. It's really neat. There's a free version of it. There's a paid version of it. I'm not even sure where that line exists between, features, functionalities, but it's really neat. And the big difference is between Notion and something like a Monday.com or any other project management tool you would use is when you sign into Notion, you're basically staring at a blank page. There's templates that you can build from, or you can just start from scratch, which, again, most people are probably like, why in the hell would I want to do that?
Yeah.
But what's cool is that it is very intuitive. You type /table, and you got a table, and it's like, what properties do you want? Do you want it to be a drop down or a checkbox or a formula that rolls other stuff up? And again, I'm a technical user in some ways, but I'm not a coder. I'm not a programmer. I have built exactly what I wanted and nothing that I didn't. I didn't have to go and hide a bunch of properties or anything like that.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
And I've got like this, I built it in like a day, and then I spent a couple more days watching YouTube videos from experts saying, hey, you can use this little automation to grab all of your YouTube video plays, likes, and comments and have them calculate. Or, there's a bunch of cool different things you can do with it. So Notion is a cool little tool. And I guess the best way to sum it up is it's a project management, task management tool where you can build exactly what you need, and it's very intuitive for someone who's, a little bit savvy. Let's be honest. The average person might go, I don't know what the heck to do with this, but simple database building they've made really accessible, and it's pretty neat.
Oh, that's cool. Notion. Yeah. I think you sent another thing to the team recently about utilizing it, right?
Jasper.
Yeah.
Jasper
That's
AI.
it. Yeah.
Haven't had a chance to look at that yet.
All right. Mine's not that cool. But but here, do you have rhythm? Yeah. Can you hold a tempo?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay. Did you know the calibrating rates of information delivery into your brain to match the brain tempo can actually make you smarter? So this is the article that I read. First of its kind study delivering information in sync with your natural brain signals actually speeds up your learning. First off, I didn't know that I had tempo in my brain.
I didn't know that either.
As a drummer, I should know that I've got right, Marco.
Right.
I should have known that I have this. But anyway, so what they do is they put the normal whatever the sensors all over your brain and stuff like that, and they give you your wavelength patterns, and then they serve information visually in time with that. And by doing that, they've proven I think it's 3 times let's see here. I think your cognitive ability to retain that is like 3 times higher if it's served in the same tempo of your brain waves.
I wonder, does that have anything to do with why I love to listen to music when I work?
Maybe.
Could
be.
I feel like I work much better sometimes when I've got music.
Yes.
I listen to podcasts at 1.5 times.
You're one of those.
Oh, you got to hear it, sped up a little
First
bit.
thing that popped into my head, I'm like, I wonder if there's something to that.
It could be.
Yep.
Because it's not like I'm, lacking time.
You do strike me as a 1.5 times guy, though.
And I just wonder, maybe that's more in sync. I'm so curious.
Someone's probably listening to this pod and going, "Oh, I thought I was on 1.5 times." Oh,
you know what's funny? People sound smarter the faster that they're speaking. When you turn, like, when I turn people down in normal speed from time to time, or I accidentally do it, I'll be like, "Why is he?" Oh, this is normal speed. They seem not slow, but slower.
Right.
So it makes you faster as well as a learner. So the learning rate for those locked into the right rhythm was at least 3 times faster for those groups than that weren't in sync.
Interesting.
So that's kind of
so
cool, right?
That's really cool.
I mean, now I want a brain monitor on there. And it's like, what is my wavelength, man?
Right. Should I be at 1.2x instead of 1.5?
Right?
I don't know which bit
I want to learn. I want to learn faster, smarter, whatever. So maybe now we're all going to start walking around with these. Well, of course, we're already there with Elon. He wants us to have Neuralink, right?
True, yeah.
And it's just going to feed us their,
So I thought it was my hope that they could just give you your rate, and then you could have some idea of how quickly you need to consume information.
Yes, right? There you go.
Next time I'm in a meeting with Dean, I'll be like, Dean, you're going to need to speed this up to get to my tempo, buddy. Come on.
Right. We got to get in rhythm. I'm very interested in this. That's super cool.
Anyway. So what's TEConnecting with
as
you,
I'm
John?
imagining Marco in the background.
Yeah.
Throwing the speed it up side.
Speed up. Yeah.
We can never get as fast as Marco's tempo wants to be. All right, so for mine, let's bring another science fiction concept to life.
All right, sir.
Remember Terminator 2 Judgment Day?
Yes. I love that movie. It's a great movie.
The new iteration of the Terminator that showed up in that film, Robert Patrick playing the T-1000.
Yes.
Which was a liquid metal Terminator.
Yes.
That could, change form, melt down.
Are we there?
Well, apparently we've created something similar.
No.
So some scientists have created a tiny robotic system that can turn from solid to liquid and back again.
Using the magnetics?
Yes.
Okay, I did see this. Yes.
I'm going to put the link to this in the show notes like always. What's hilarious is the little concept video they did. The creator shows like a little guy. It's like almost looks like a little Lego guy.
It is totally a Lego
and they
dude.
literally, even though they said they were not inspired by the movie, they were inspired actually by sea cucumbers. They apparently can do this, like
really?
kind of liquefy and change their form and reform again.
Did not know that.
They modeled it by creating like what looks like a little prison set, kind of like from the movie, where the little Lego pieces on one side melts down, goes through the bars, basically drops into a mold where it molds it back into its shape, and then once it's molded into its shape, it reconstitutes and it stands back up essentially.
You built a robot that can do this?
These are it's basically tiny robots that are in a suspension liquid called it's gallium, which apparently has a metal with a very low melting point of just 86 degrees. So it creates a substance that flows more like water than other phase-changing materials, which are more viscous.
That's
so
weird.
It's mini robots that
How
are...
many?
I'm sure they're microscopic, probably.
Okay.
They didn't really say... I don't think they
You got
say
me thinking
exactly
about Big Hero 6. You guys ever see that movie?
Oh, yeah. Love that movie.
Such a cool movie.
Yeah, love it. Just watched that this weekend, actually.
Have you seen it?
No.
Yeah. So yeah, it's magnets. It's it's something that's got its own internal melting structure, basically. I mean, and again, we're talking about something that's like super slow, but they've also come up with some interesting concepts of how it can be used to solder circuits, deliver medication, and one example showed it clearing a foreign object from a model's stomach. Ooh. So there's different ways they can use it. Kind of like a sort of form of nanotech without being quite that small necessarily, and using the potentially liquefying aspect. Another thing to mention is a universal screw melts into a screw socket, solidifies with no actual screwing required.
There you go.
That is
I
cool.
like.
There's a practical example.
Give me one of them.
I love that idea of like you just have something that just kind of oozes out of, forms whatever you need. You do what you need to do, and you're done.
Yes.
Listen, you no longer need the 2 different screwdrivers.
Yeah.
But it's $150. Like, wait a minute. Never mind.
I want the one that replaces the socket wrench set where I have to like come up with like, because I'm sorry, I'm never going to be that guy that knows which which one is the 1/8 and which one's the this, that, or whatever.
Yes,
I'm
understood.
never going to be that person. Just give me the one that just forms right around it, tightens up, and lets me just do my job.
Yeah. The video is a little weird though on that to watch the little dude melt.
Yeah, it is.
Then he goes out,
Yes.
and then it's like it's like stop animation.
It
is what it
is,
is.
yeah.
It's like right.
I do recommend checking it out. It's a little creepy. They should have set it to Terminator music in some way. Dun, 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 when it comes out there.
Real quick, Big Hero 6, this guy developed something called microbots.
Okay.
Little tiny robots that can form to create anything.
yeah.
Form and become a construction tool that builds. Really cool.
Very neat concept.
Movie,
Yeah.
so-
No,
Very
yeah,
fun
they're
movie.
there at MIT. One of my TEConnectings was that Voxel, which is
That's right.
It's actually about the size of a Rubik's cube is where they're at today. But this voxel can build into whatever you tell it to, and it'll create other voxels. And you need a wall, they were doing stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah,
Exactly.
That's awesome.
That's like the foundation of what you just said. What's
it
this
is.
movie called again?
Big Hero 6. It's
Big
a
Hero 6,
Disney
right.
film.
Oh, yeah.
Animated Disney film.
It is
It's actually
fantastic.
based on a Marvel property, a very little known
Got it.
Japanese Marvel property.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Was that the
stuff.
big balloon guy?
Baymax. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've seen
yeah.
that. Yeah.
We bought that one, and I've watched it many, many times.
Love
Kids are
it.
like, it's okay. I'm like, get out of here. I'm watching the movie.
No doubt. Exactly.
All right, we got to wrap it up.
All right, that's what's TEConnecting with us. Until next time, go out there and blow up the internet. Watch out for little liquid robots that might stalk you because you are the mother of the future liberator of mankind. I don't know. As always, please stay connected. TEConnect Podcast is brought to you by ELO. Being self-service has never been easier.
That's true.
Yeah.
You think?
I mean, that's what the ad says. So,
Yes.
yeah. Introducing ELO's Wallaby Pro kiosk stand. Look, the Wallaby Pro is changing the industry by making it easier than ever to configure interactive self-service solutions. Choose from wall, counter, and floor models engineered with configurations to fit any space in retail, restaurants, hospitality, healthcare, and corporate environments.
That's like anywhere right there.
That's pretty much
Pretty
outside
much
of your
anywhere.
house, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you put a Wallaby Pro in your house
If you wanted to.
I don't know what you do with it, but you could put one there.
Yeah.
ELO would be happy to
Other
sell
than
one.
that, we got you covered.
Yeah. So just add a 22, 24, or 27-inch touchscreen display. I can see my wife appreciating the Wallaby Pro. She'd go order up to her dinner, Send her dinner order to me. And be
Yes.
like, here's what I want, honey. I'm like, thanks a lot.
Great.
Did you put your payment in? I'd probably get a nasty response.
Yes,
to
you
that,
would.
though.
Yes, you would.
Anyway, this ad's going off the rails. You're looking for more options? How about a custom branded backer board? A ceiling pole to minimize footprint, add a printer, ADA keyboard, assist button. You can use ELO's Edge Connect to attach accessories. Oh, and that Wallaby Pro stand offers easy-to-access concealed housing for a power strip, power bricks, compute devices, cables, whatever you need.
Boom.
I don't understand why you would pick another kiosk.
No. The modularity, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
done. That's all you need.
So if you're ready to help your customers design the most customizable self-service solutions, start with the Wallaby Pro. Contact your ELO representative to learn more. TEConnect Podcast is also brought to you by Zebra. All right, every task worker without mobile access to relevant information is forced to take a lot of extra steps and time to complete their
Oh,
tasks.
man. I just think about it. How brutal that is.
Yeah,
Having to do
exactly.
that.
Like, I just need to know where this particular label is.
Yeah, but I got to go to
What-
that office and that file cabinet.
Yeah,
And
and then they're going to tell me I'm in the wrong place. And I
Right.
go to the office on the other side of the building. Yeah,
Aren't
no
we
fun.
beyond that? We're beyond that.
I hope so. Well, I mean,
With this solution, we are.
Zebra's got an idea. So that erodes operational efficiency. So connecting disconnected workers is easy with Zebra's WS50, the world's smallest all-in-one Android enterprise class wearable mobile computer. All right, this device, Dean, it's rugged,
Yes.
it's modular,
Yes. Love that.
it's at home everywhere.
Yes.
From manufacturing and warehousing to retail and hospitality. Maybe this one doesn't also go to your house either. I mean,
Yeah, but it feels at home in any of those environments,
I mean,
right?
You probably don't have a lot of reasons to use that, but the other one's
a good point.
So there. Feels at home. I like that. That's good. You feel like you're just like if you're at home.
It was built for it.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Try selling that to the workers.
Yeah.
It's a versatile computing core with a modular design that lets users choose the right amount for the job. the right mount for the job. Or a mount. Maybe you want to wear 5 of these things. I don't know.
You could.
You could wear it on the wrist, you could wear it on the back of your hand, or a 2-finger version. The WS50 mobile computer is small but mighty, packed with powerful business-class voice and data features that drive productivity and accuracy with every task. It is lightweight and ergonomic, comfortable, and never in the way. Plus, with no host device required, the WS50 is the first of its kind, offering powerful data capture with all-in-one Android device simplicity.
Boom.
This is like James Bonding.
Yes.
Maybe more like Get Smart type stuff from like the 60s and 70s. The gadget on your wrist that does everything.
Scanning ring. Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
That's
just pretty cool.
It's cool, neat technology. Who doesn't want this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
So check out the link in the show notes for more information and helpful resources to sell the WS50.